She was asleep in row 13, cocooned in the quiet rhythm of the engines as they purred through the clouds. The steady vibration and soft hum had lulled her into the kind of sleep that only comes after a week of pushing herself too hard. Amelia had been traveling home after an exhausting business trip, her body drained, her mind fogged with fatigue. She had slipped her jacket around her shoulders, tucked the thin airline blanket under her chin, and let herself drift into a dreamless rest while the cabin around her breathed in its gentle pattern of sighs, murmurs, and mechanical hums. The world outside was invisible, only endless darkness and the occasional flicker of light on the wing. Inside, the passengers were lost in their own little universes of sleep and silence. Then came the chime, a sharp, clear sound that sliced through the calm like a blade. A few passengers stirred, but most ignored it, until the captain's voice followed, low and calm yet laced with something that didn't belong there, urgency. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this is your captain speaking. If there is anyone on board with flight experience, anyone who is a pilot, please make yourself known to the crew immediately." The words hung in the air, suspended in an invisible tension. Heads lifted, eyes met across rows, the usual hum of the aircraft faded into a strange, uneasy silence. It wasn't turbulence, it wasn't a routine message. Something was wrong, something serious. The air itself seemed to tighten, pressing down on everyone's chest. Amelia stirred awake, her lashes fluttering open, her mind sluggish as she tried to catch up with what she'd just heard. The first thing she noticed was the silence, heavy and unnatural. Then the whispers began. A man 2 rows ahead leaned toward his wife. "Did he just say he needs a pilot?" he murmured. Someone behind muttered, "What's going on? Isn't the captain supposed to be flying?" The questions rippled through the cabin, small waves of fear growing with every passing second. Amelia rubbed her eyes, trying to chase away the haze of sleep. For a moment, she thought she'd misheard. But when she caught the expression of the flight attendant rushing down the aisle, face pale but controlled, she knew this wasn't some misunderstanding. "If anyone has piloting experience," the attendant called out, voice strained, "please let us know immediately." No one moved. People shifted in their seats, looking around as if a volunteer might rise from somewhere, but every face held the same expression, confusion and fear. The attendant's eyes darted from row to row. She reached Amelia's aisle, still searching, still hoping. Amelia's heart was pounding. A cold shiver ran down her spine as her brain tried to make sense of it all. Why would the captain make such a call? What had happened up there? Her throat felt dry as dust, but deep inside, something began to stir. A truth she had buried long ago. She wasn't just another exhausted traveler. She wasn't merely a businesswoman trying to get home. Years before, Amelia had been a pilot. Not for an airline, but a private one, a different kind of sky, a different kind of life. There had been a time when the cockpit was her second home, when her hands knew instinctively what each control meant, when the sound of an engine wasn't noise but language. But that was another life. Another version of her. A version she had buried under responsibility, family, and pain. The attendant's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, Amelia's body froze. She wanted to speak, but doubt clawed its way up her chest. What if she wasn't ready? What if she made things worse? It had been nearly 10 years since she last touched the controls of a plane. 10 years since she'd sworn she would never fly again after losing her best friend in a small aircraft accident. That loss had stolen not only her confidence but her will to ever step into a cockpit again. But the faces around her, the young couple gripping hands, the elderly man crossing himself, the mother clutching her sleeping baby, told her this wasn't about fear anymore. This was about responsibility. Her daughter's face flashed in her mind. The promise she'd made to always come home. The world seemed to narrow into one long heartbeat. Then she spoke. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I can fly." The flight attendant froze, then exhaled sharply, relief flooding her expression. "Please come with me," she whispered. Within seconds, Amelia was out of her seat, walking the narrow aisle as eyes followed her. Every gaze carried silent prayers, desperate hope, and fragile trust. When the cockpit door opened, the air changed. Inside, the captain slumped motionless in his chair, his skin gray and clammy. A medical emergency. The first officer was at the controls, panic written all over his face, his movements frantic and uneven. "I'm a pilot," Amelia said, quickly stepping forward. "Private license. It's been years, but I know the basics. Tell me what to do." The young officer blinked at her, relief and disbelief colliding in his eyes. Thank God, he muttered. I can't do this alone. There was no room for hesitation now. Amelia slid into the captain's seat, the smell of metal and machine oil hitting her senses like a memory come alive. The layout had changed since her flying days, more screens, more buttons, but the essence was the same. Throttle, rudder, flaps, horizon. Her fingers hovered for a second, trembling, then steadied. She could feel it again, the pulse of the engines beneath her, the subtle vibration of control. Her instincts, long dormant, began to reawaken. Air traffic control crackled through the radio, the officer responding with clipped, nervous replies. We've had a medical emergency. Requesting immediate priority landing. Amelia took a deep breath and scanned the instruments. Altitude steady, airspeed stable, but the storm brewing outside the windows was another story. As they worked, the memories came back in flashes, training days, cloud dives, emergency drills, her mentor's voice teaching her calm in chaos. And then the crash. The day everything had changed. The pain that had driven her away from the skies. Now the same sky that once took everything from her was demanding something back. The minutes blurred into a haze of commands, numbers, and focus. The officer followed her lead, his breathing calming as she guided them through descent protocols. Below them, city lights glittered like scattered stars. Inside, the cabin held its breath. Runway in sight, the officer said. Amelia's hands tightened on the controls. Flaps down, reduce speed. Her voice was firm, grounded. The trembling was gone. All that remained was the rhythm of precision, the unspoken connection between pilot and plane. The runway stretched ahead, a narrow path of light cutting through darkness. You can do this, she whispered to herself. You were born for this. The plane kissed the tarmac with a jolt. The wheels screamed. The cabin gasped. Then, slowly, mercifully, the world steadied. The roar softened into a roll. The speed bled away until the aircraft came to a full stop. Silence. Then an eruption, cheers, sobs, clapping. People crying and hugging, laughter mixing with tears. The first officer turned to her, voice trembling. You just saved over 100 lives. Amelia stared straight ahead for a moment, her heart pounding. Then she smiled faintly. No, she said softly. We did. When she walked back through the cabin, every face turned toward her. Strangers reached out to touch her hand, to thank her. A child looked up, eyes wide with awe, and whispered, You saved us. And in that fragile, beautiful moment, Amelia realized that bravery isn't born in the absence of fear, it's born in spite of it. She had spent years running from the sky, but the sky had found her again. That night, somewhere high above the clouds, she had rediscovered herself. And maybe that's what courage truly is, answering the call when the world least expects it, even when you've long forgotten how to listen. Sometimes destiny waits in silence, in row 13, until the moment it needs you most.